Hi, in this video we're going to take a quick look at the technical factors dot point from your syllabus. Now remember, technical factors will be asked about in the extended response section. So we're going to look at mechanization, automation, specialization, mass production, and new and emerging technologies. We'll quickly go over what they are and some examples about how they're used and the benefits that they have on the business. So to start with, we have mechanization. And mechanization is when we replace a manual process with machines. So in industry, it means the introduction of machinery into the actual production process. So as an example, if you were in the timber industry and you were using a screwdriver to put all your screws in, you would now start using a power tool. So you're mechanizing the process. In multimedia, we could be talking about using things like graphics tablets to draw. So it's automatically digital format. So it speaks of a point where the tool becomes a device and is controlled by the operator. Now, mechanization is really good because it generally sees an increase in production as you're able to make things a lot quicker. It also generally sees efficiency increase, less wastage, whether that be in time or materials. Now, with the advantages, we'll notice that most of them are actually common across all of these points. So I may repeat myself a little bit. The second point is automation. Now, automation differs somewhat to mechanization in where automation is talking about the computer controlling the entire process. So with automation, we're talking here about the process in industry where various production operations are converted from a manual process to an automated process. So whereas with mechanization, we're just saying you bring in computer-controlled tools into the process, so a power drill, you still have a person there doing the job. With automation, this is where we see the machine actually taking over from the manual process. So the machine will now do the job. Automation will generally mean that you have less staff necessary now in your business, as there are less positions to fill. But however, it could also mean that you need to hire new staff to be able to use the new machines, or you might have to retrain or get staff that are multi-skilled. So automation will also look at things like increasing production, increasing efficiency. And if you're bringing machines into your industry, it's important to remember that you will have to spend a lot of money up front to set up all of this. However, in the long term, you should see a savings in money as you're able to produce more and pay less in wages. Specialization is a straightforward point. It's simply talking about producing only one type of product or service. So a company would go into a specialized model if they wanted to focus on one particular thing. This means they're able to pool all of their resources, all of their skills, all of their money into one product, which allows them to save money in the production of that, as they are able to make that the most efficient and the most productive way. Next, we have mass production. So when we talk about mass production, we're talking about the large-scale production of goods in factories. Most people would have seen examples of mass production on things such as car lines, when you have the assembly line and all the machines on the side building the pieces of the car as it moves along. If you're going to set up mass production, you need to follow a few simple steps. You need to ensure that you have a division of labor. So the manufacturing process is broken down into small specialized tasks that each worker carries out over and over. So one particular area may be making the car doors. Then they pass that on and the machine attaches the door to the rest of the car. So each piece is done by a specific division. You then have a standardization of parts across a number of products. This means that everybody makes the exact same product, so everything that comes out of the mass production is exactly the same. It also saves the company a lot of money. The development of machinery needs to happen to perform the tasks and produce the components. And the production process needs to be designed as efficiently as possible, otherwise you defeat the purpose of bringing in mass production. The final point is new and emerging technologies. So this can refer to any new or emerging technology in your field. For multimedia, we're talking about things such as augmented reality, mobile devices, or any new hardware or software. Companies would bring in new and emerging technologies for a number of reasons. It may be to increase production. It may be to increase efficiency. It may be to be better for the environment, so bringing in alternative resources like solar power. New and emerging technologies are necessary for most companies, especially large ones, if they want to stay up to date and ahead of their competition. So as a recap, it's important to remember the effects on business of these points. Firstly, there's always an effect on staffing. If you're going to mechanize, automate, bring in mass production, you're generally going to have to either fire existing staff, make them redundant. You may have to hire new staff, which means you have to worry about things like equal employment opportunities. You then may have to retrain or multi-skill existing staff as well. You're always looking at increasing efficiency. So whenever you bring in this technology, you want to make sure that it's going to make your company more efficient and save you money in the long term. And that goes on with production. You're generally going to use these processes or bring them in if you want to increase the amount of production or streamline your production process. And finally, there is always a cost. The initial cost is generally high. However, in the long term, you should see a saving, whether it be from wages, because of an increase of production, because there's less waste, and other points like that.